Guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time here, you're welcome to Start by Taiwo. In this video, I'll be teaching on how I went about making this dress. So if this is what you like, don't not forget to like, subscribe, and also drop a beautiful comment. So let's get started. So for this dress, we'll be making use of 3 yards of Ankara fabrics, but if you're on the plus size, I'll advise you go for 4 yards of Ankara fabric. Other material you might need is an SD and your lining. For the lining, 1.5 yards would be okay, but I used half yard because I just used it for the upper part. So right here, what I have now is my pattern paper, and I would just want to go ahead to draft out my basic block. So the first thing I want to go ahead to draft out now is my half length, and for my front half length, I have about 16.5 inches, which I'll go ahead to mark it round. And for the back half length, I have about 15 inches, which is 1.5 inches difference from my front half length. Then for the width, you get your highest measurement. For me, my highest measurement is the bust. I'll divide it by 4, and whatever I have, I add about 3 inches to each, and I'll go ahead to mark it out for the front. Then for the back, I'll just add about 2 inches to it and mark it out. So that is how I was able to go ahead to mark out my basic block. So the next thing right now that I want to do now is to mark out my measurements, and I'll be starting with the vertical measurement. So for the vertical measurement, I'll mark out my chest line. I'm going to go ahead to mark this round across both for the front and the back. And after marking out my chest line, I'll mark out my bust point. Also go ahead to mark it round. And I'll also mark out my under bust, but the under bust will only be marked out in the front and the half length, which we've already gone ahead to mark out, and I will just want to go ahead to use my straight ruler to connect it round. So we are done with marking out our vertical measurements. So the next thing now, I want to mark out my neck width. So for my neck width, I'll be using 3 inches, and the next thing is my shoulder length, which is 7.5 inches, and I'm going to come down from my shoulder length by 1.5 inches. So I just wanted to go ahead to mark out my shoulder length round so that I can serve as a guide, so I don't mark curve anyhow. Then I'll just want to go ahead to use my pattern ruler to connect it, and also slant to my neck width. So my neck width was 3 inches, and I slanted down by 1.5 inches. So the next thing, I would just want to go ahead now, get the midpoint of my chest line, and I will go ahead to mark it out, then come out by 3/4 inches and use my pattern ruler to connect it. So after connecting that, the next thing I will want to do is to measure out my side measurement. So the first thing I will make out is my bust round divided by 4, and I'm going to mark out what I have, and I'll also go to my half length and mark out my waist round divided by 4. So for the waist round divided by 4, I also want to add 1.5 inches, which is for my dart intake. So now I'll be marking out my bust point round. So for my bust point, I'll be using my bust span, I'm going to be using 4 inches. So I'm going to go ahead now to mark it round, and the next thing I want to do now is my dart intake. So for my dart intake, I'll be taking out 3/4 inches from both sides, and I'll just want to go ahead now to connect it to my bust point. So the next thing after this point is to do our under bust tightening. So before doing that, I would just want to go ahead. I notice I did not mark out the line so that you can understand what part I'm working on. So this part I'm marking out is the under bust, and that is the bust point. Then the chest line. Then our back half length is different from the back half length. So this is the back half length I'm marking out, and also the front half length. With the difference with the two is 1.5 inches. So I've just gone ahead to mark that out, and the next thing I want to do is to measure my round measurements, which our bust round was bust round divided by 4, and my hip and waist round was our waist round divided by 4, and I added 1.5 inches for that intake. So for for our under bust, So for me, I will not be using my bust point. I would like to bring it up a bit. So you could bring it up a bit by 1.5 inches. I mean the chest line, I mean. You could bring it up by 1.5 inches. So before that, I would just want to go ahead to connect our armhole with my curved ruler. So for the chest line, you could use the chest line, but if you want yours to be a bit covered, like you do not want your cleavage to show, you could come up by 1 inches or 1.5 inches. So after connecting my bust, sorry, after connecting the armhole, I would just want to also go ahead to come up by 1.5 inches. So for this part, I later came up by 1 inch instead of the 1.5 inches as I said before. So you could decide on your own on where you want, how up you want yours to be. You could also do half inches if you don't want to come up too much. Do 1 inches, 1.5, or still you go ahead to measure from your neck to where you want it to be, and then you mark it, you come up here. So I'm doing 1 inches and I've gone ahead to mark that round. So what I'm just trying to do now is to use my pattern ruler, straight ruler, to cut and to connect it. So this is where my top is going to be starting from, not my chest line now. So I'll be taking my proper measurements from here. So the next thing I will want to do right now is my overbust tightening. So for the overbust tightening, you could do 0.5 inches from both sides. So 0.5 inches or 3/4 of an inch. If you're on the slim side, I'll advise you do 0.5 inches. Or if you're on the plus size, 3/4 of an inches will be fine. So after marking that, the next thing I want to do is to use my curved pattern ruler to connect these lines together. So remember, we have already gone ahead to mark out our under bust already. So I will just want to go ahead now, use my pattern ruler to connect the point we marked out here. I came in here, if you can remember, by 0.5 inches, and I came out on the other part by 1/4 of an inches. So I'll just go ahead, place my pattern ruler, just as you can see, connecting both the under bust and the over bust tightening together, and go ahead to connect it. So I was just trying to like place my pattern ruler way. So just ensure to place your pattern ruler way so that you can connect it and get a good curve. Alternatively, you might not necessarily need to ensure that the over bust, when you place your ruler, that the under bust and the over bust connect together. You could place first for the under bust to connect, and after that you connect to the over bust tightening. So my ruler, I've tried to place it where, and I went ahead to repeat same process for the other side. So after this, now we are done with our under bust tightening. The next thing you might want to do right now is to connect it to your dart leg. So before connecting to our dart leg, I just want to go ahead right now to extend my, like, return about half of the overbust tightening. So for the overbust tightening, if you took 1/3 of an inches from both sides, you're going to return 3/4 of an inches back, extend the line just as I did here, return it back, and go ahead to reconnect to your underarm, and this will be our new underarm. So I just went ahead now to connect this to my waistline. So at this point, I will go ahead after this now to connect to my dart leg, and we are done with the front. So for the back now, I would just want to go ahead to return most of the measurement we use for the front, which is the back, the neckline. The only thing is that the neck width is same thing with the front and the back, but the neck depth, I'll be coming down by 1 inch for the back. But our shoulder slant, everything, chest line, everything is going to be the same thing. So I just want to go ahead right now and return every measurement to the back. Doing that, the next thing I want to do now is our center back slants, like for the zipper. So I just came out by half inches, which at the center back there, and I connected to my neck part. So the next thing I went out to do was to mark out my waist round. So my waist round divided by 4 plus 1.5 inches is what I'm going to use, and I'll go ahead to connect it to my bust point. So after doing this, next thing I want to do now is my dart intake. The bust span that we use for the front is 4 inches, and I'm going to go ahead to return that to the back. So I'm going to measure 4 inches from our waist, from our bust span, bust point round, and use my straight ruler to connect it. And the next thing I'll do is my dart intake of half inches on both sides. So before doing the dart intake, I just wanted to go ahead to extend to my chest line, and the reason is because I'm going to do a over I'm going to do a neck tightening at the back part. So after this, I'm just going to go ahead to connect my dart intake. So if you could remember, we marked from our chest line 1 inches for the front, and I'm going to go ahead to do same for the back, return that same 1 inches, and also use my ruler, straight ruler, to connect it. So for the dart intake, remember I said 1.5 inches earlier. So whatever inches and that allowance you added for the back is what you're going to be using. So for my back tightening, I'm going to come out from both sides by half inches. Now I just want to go ahead to connect this. So I just wanted to go ahead to connect to the dart leg, just as you can see, so that I don't have and the curve does not look anyhow on the back. So this back tightening is for the back to be fitted. So I did 0.5 inches on both sides. So at this point, I'll say our back is almost ready, our back pattern is almost ready. So you just want to go ahead to connect it, and you all could also go ahead to extend to the dart leg. So after this, now I'm just going to go ahead mark out my new armhole because of the 1 inches I added, and next thing is to use my ruler to cut out. So before then, at the back part, I'm just going to go ahead to come down by that 1 inches I added just for the back curve, the neckline curve. But if you want yours straight, you could actually leave it straight, but I'll advise you go ahead and curve it just as I did. So the next thing now is to cut out. So coming to the front, I remembered I did not take my side dart. So for the side dart, you'll be marking the difference from the back half length and the front half length, and mine is 1.5 inches. So I went ahead to mark it out and went ahead to also curve it. So after doing this, you would also want to go ahead to cut out. So just the side that was what I left for the front, so I just had to go back to return it there. So I wanted to close it and see if our lines, the side line that we connected, if it's equal. So if it's not equal, you could just want to go ahead and connect your lines back so that they can align. So that is what I did here. So just don't forget, if you did your side, that's fine, but if you did not do yours, you could actually do it at this point. So after this, now the next thing, I just want to go ahead now to cut out my front part out. So after the cutting right here, what I have now is I've gone ahead to cut out to my fabric, and I also went ahead to cut out to my lining. I added half inches round, and at the side I added about 2 inches round. So for the back, for the center back, I added 1 inches for the zip part. So this is our center back. I added about half 1 inches just because of the zip, and at the side I added 2 inches. So I repeated the same process. So I just wanted to go ahead to notch on our center back so that I won't make mistake when trying to join. So you repeat the same process for your lining and for the fabric, but if you could also go ahead to gum your clothes gum to this, but I did not add my clothes gum because I'm using a high target fabric, so I trusted the strength of my material. So the next thing is to join after we are done with these parts. So the next thing now is to join the fabric and then the lining. So we'll be joining the fabric separately and also be joining the lining separately. So I will show you how I will go about for the front. So for the front, for the midpoint, I just went ahead to open it, then place on both sides. And what we're going to do is that we're going to sew by half inches on both sides, and we are going to repeat this same process for the front. Sorry, we are going to repeat the same process for the lining, and after that we'll go to the back. So for the back, don't forget that you should notch, because if you notice at this point some parts were looking same, so probably you might choose to either notch the zip part, or you might choose to notch the dart part, so that when you are trying to join, you don't make mistake or you don't get confused on what part to join and what part not to join. So after you've notched out, so you just take note of the part that you notch out, and you bring out the fabric part separately to join, and you bring the lining part separately. So this is my lining part, so I'll just go ahead, join on this dart side by half inches, repeat it for the both sides. Also do same for the fabric, join, place it as you see like this, and girls go ahead to join by half inches. So I'll be going to my sewing machine now to do that. So I'm done with that, and this is what I have. So after you've done sewing, so you just want to go ahead also to press the lines. So this is my front, so I just want to sew with the lining. So you just go ahead, place it and sew round, leaving, and the only part you're not going to sew is the down part, which you're going to use to turn. So you're going to go ahead and sew round by half inches round, sewing the lining to the fabric. So this is for our back. The first one was the front. So for the back, you just go ahead, place, take note of the this in the zip part. Go ahead, place it, and also go ahead, sew the neck part, arm round, everything round. The only part we're not going to be sewing is our down part. So right here, I'm done sewing, and the next thing we want to do is to join both sides. So I left about 2 inches for my allowance. So since I left 2 inches for the allowance and I went in to sew by half inches, so what I'll have now is 1.5 inches. So if you did 1.5 inches, so you should have 1 inches to sew, use to sew the both sides. So I'll just go to my sewing machine and sew it. So the next part we're going to now is the down part. So for this our down part is the skirt length. So to get this part, you're going to minus your half length from your full gown length, or either ways you measure your half length down to your skirt length where you want the gown to stop. So for me, I'll be working with 25, and I'm going to, the up part is going to be longer than the down part, just as you have seen here. So for my down part, the length I'm working with is 10 inches, and the upper part, the length I'm working with is 15 inches, which when you add together is going to be 25 inches. And for the down part, don't forget you are going to add about 1.5 inches allowance, so which is going to serve for folding allowance and to also help for the up joining allowance. So for the width now, you're going to measure your waist round. So for instance, let's say our waist round is 26. For the upper part is going to be 2.5, let's say 3 times more. So that is 26 times 3. That will be for the upper part. That's what you're going to cut out. So each part is also dependent on how much fabric you have. If you do not have much fabric or you're trying to manage fabric, you can also make it 2.5 more times for the upper part. Then for the down part, you also want to go ahead to make your down part 4 times. The width should be 4 times more than the up width, because you know you are gathering to the upper part, and which is more wider, so you're going to make it 4 times wide so that your gather can form a little. If you can't make it 4 times wide, 3 times wide is still okay, but just know that it's going to affect how much gather you're going to have. It's going to, maybe you're just going to go ahead to gather it little. So for me, I cut mine in pieces, and I'm just trying to measure around what I have, and when I'm done, I'll just want to go to my sewing machine and join them together. And you go ahead, gather the upper part, what you have for your waist round. When you join it together, you gather it. So I'm going to go ahead to gather to my waist round measurement of what I have for my tops. So now I'm done gathering the upper part. So this is my down part. So for me, my down part was really small. The fabric I had was not much longer. So but this is what you have for the down part. So what you want to do is to measure round the width you have here, so that you can also go ahead to gather this down part with the width you have, and you go ahead to sew to it and join the up part and the down part together. So when you're done, I think at this point our dress is almost ready. Just go ahead, gather just as I said. So when you're done gathering to the width of what you have down here, you just want to go to your sewing machine and sew to it round by half inches. So I'm done with that, and the next thing I want to do now is to join this to the upper part of my dress. So I just want to go ahead, and don't forget that you have to gather the up part to the width of your shoulder, sorry, to your waist round. So I just want to go ahead and join these both sides by half inches. And the next thing we want to go now is our sleeve. So for the sleeve, you could measure how wide you want yours to be. If you want yours to be 1 inch, 2 inches, it depends, but I wanted mine to be more, so I have gone ahead to sew, and I'll just want to go ahead to place it. I'll be repeating this on the front and on the back where we have our armhole measurement, and after that I'll just want to go ahead, close, and after closing I'll sew my zip and hem the dress. So thank you for watching.